going round trying to get people to sit there in a room and listen to what he's saying. I mean, there's three main things. It doesn't make sense, does it? I mean, how can he do that? I don't even.
Prince Harry is once again drawing attention, this time for what critics are calling a deeply ironic turn in his public life. The Duke of Sussex, long vocal about his desire for privacy, is now being described as embarking on what some commentators have mockingly labeled a real-life privacy tour. The phrase has quickly gained traction online, largely because of its striking resemblance to the infamous South Park episode that satirized Harry and Meghan Markle for publicly demanding privacy while simultaneously seeking constant media exposure. The controversy reignited after the Royal News Network highlighted Prince Harry's growing involvement in paid speaking engagements, including his upcoming role as a keynote speaker at the International Association of Privacy Professionals IAPP Global Summit 2026. The event, which focuses on privacy, artificial intelligence, governance, and cybersecurity law, is scheduled to run from March 30th to April 2nd, with tickets priced as high as $1,800 per attendee. Observers were quick to point out the irony. Prince, who has repeatedly accused the media and institutions of violating his privacy, is now monetizing his voice at a profit-driven privacy conference. Commentators argue that this move exposes a widening gap between Prince Harry's stated values and his current financial reality. Critics suggest that his increasing reliance on paid appearances reflects mounting financial pressure rather than any genuine altruistic mission. According to multiple sources, speaking engagements have become one of Harry's primary income streams, raising questions about whether necessity rather than principle is driving these decisions. Adding to the skepticism is the nature of the audience itself. The conference's speaker roster is reportedly dominated by lawyers, corporate privacy consultants, and industry professionals promoting their own services. For critics, this makes Harry's participation appear less like advocacy and more like brand monetization. As one commentator put it, the Duke is offering an open goal to critics who argue that selling privacy-themed speeches undermines his long-standing insistence on personal boundaries. The timing has further sharpened the criticism. Just days before the announcement, Prince Harry appeared in a London courtroom, reiterating claims that his life had been commodified by the royal institution since his teenage years. Yet, in the same week, Meghan Markle shared new photographs of Harry and their children on social media, images that critics argue directly contradict the couple's narrative about shielding their family from public exposure. To many observers, the contradiction was impossible to ignore. Financial concerns loom large over the discussion. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex are widely reported to face substantial annual expenses in the United States, including security and housing costs estimated to reach tens of millions of dollars. With no conventional employment and ongoing costly legal battles against major publishers, Prince Harry's financial obligations remain significant. Reports indicate that the couple has already scaled back operations, including reducing staff and shuttering parts of their foundation, further fueling speculation about tightening finances. For critics, the Washington appearance fits into a broader narrative described as drift and grift, a perception that the Sussexes' post-royal life lacks clear direction while increasingly relying on monetized exposure. Comparisons have even been drawn to the Duke of Windsor, who spent much of his post-abdication life traveling and speaking for fees. A parallel that royal historians say is difficult to ignore. As Prince Harry prepares to step onto the conference stage, the question remains whether this privacy tour will reinforce his credibility or further diminish his public standing. For now, the irony alone has ensured that the spotlight remains firmly fixed on him, as criticism surrounding Prince Harry's upcoming appearance at the Privacy Summit continues to build. Royal commentators and analysts are increasingly questioning what the engagement reveals about the long-term consequences of Megxit. What was once framed as a bold departure in pursuit of independence and humanitarian impact is now, for many observers, being reassessed as a strategic miscalculation with narrowing options. Several commentators argue that the optics of Prince Harry positioning himself as an authority on privacy are particularly problematic given his own public record. Since stepping away from royal duties, Harry has spoken extensively about his family, his upbringing, and deeply personal experiences across interviews, documentaries, books, and court proceedings. Critics contend that this extensive self-disclosure undermines his credibility as a spokesperson on privacy rights, especially when those disclosures have generated significant commercial returns. The irony has not gone unnoticed by industry observers. Social media platforms have been flooded with comparisons to the South Park episode that famously mocked the couple for traveling the world while demanding privacy. What was once dismissed by supporters as exaggerated satire is now being cited by critics as an accurate reflection of reality. Even some former sympathizers acknowledge that the contradiction has become increasingly difficult to defend, particularly as paid speaking engagements become more frequent. Financial pressure is widely viewed as a central factor in this shift. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex are believed to carry exceptionally high annual expenses, driven by private security requirements, legal fees, and the upkeep of their Montecito estate. Prince Harry has no traditional employment and has spent extended periods in the United Kingdom pursuing legal action against major media organizations, cases that are both time-consuming and financially draining. As a result, speaking engagements are seen not merely as optional opportunities but as financial necessities. Critics also point to the broader implications for Prince Harry's public role. Once positioned as a global advocate for mental health, digital safety, and ethical leadership, his growing reliance on paid conferences risks reframing him as a prince for hire. Analysts warn that this perception could erode what remains of his moral authority, particularly when his speeches are delivered in commercial settings. Alongside corporate lobbyists and consultants promoting their own services, the contrast between Prince Harry's stated goals and recent family activity has further intensified scrutiny. While Harry continues to warn about the dangers of digital exposure, especially for children, Meghan Markle has actively shared curated images of their family life online. Critics argue that this dual approach sends conflicting signals, publicly condemning commodification while privately engaging in it. Supporters counter that the couple has the right to control their own narrative, but detractors insist that control and commercialization are not the same thing. Royal biographers and historians have begun drawing uncomfortable parallels with historical precedent. Comparisons to the Duke of Windsor, who, after abdication, sustained his lifestyle through paid appearances and foreign engagements, have resurfaced with increasing frequency. In both cases, critics argue, the prestige of the title appears to have outlived the substance of the role, leaving public visibility as the primary asset. As the IAPP Global Summit approaches, attention is shifting from announcement to outcome. Observers are asking whether Prince Harry can convincingly articulate a coherent vision on privacy, governance, and digital responsibility, or whether the event will further reinforce the perception that his post-royal trajectory has been defined by contradiction. With ticket prices reaching $1,800, expectations will be high-end, the audience unlikely to be forgiving. For Prince Harry, the stakes extend beyond a single speech. Each appearance now serves as a referendum on the success or failure of the life he chose after leaving the royal fold. Whether this latest chapter reshapes the narrative or deepens existing criticism remains to be seen. But one thing is clear: the debate over privacy, principle, and profit is far from over. As debate around Prince Harry's paid speaking engagements intensifies, analysts are increasingly examining what this moment represents for his public identity. Once viewed as a reform-minded royal determined to modernize the monarchy from within, Harry now finds himself recast by critics as a figure struggling to define a credible role outside the institution he left behind. The Privacy Summit appearance has become symbolic of that struggle. Royal experts argue that the core issue is not Prince Harry's decision to speak publicly, but the inconsistency between message and behavior. Advocating for privacy while profiting from highly personal disclosures has created what many see as an irreconcilable contradiction. This tension is magnified by the commercial setting of the conference, where privacy is not merely a principle but an industry. In such an environment, Harry's presence risks being interpreted less as leadership and more as brand leverage. The optics are particularly challenging given recent family dynamics. Prince Harry has spoken openly about his estrangement from his brother and the breakdown of communication within the royal family. Critics question how a figure who has been unable to maintain private family relationships can credibly position himself as a guide for building a better digital world. Supporters argue that personal pain can inform advocacy, but detractors maintain that unresolved conflict weakens the authority of his message. Financial realities continue to loom large in the background. The Sussexes' lifestyle in the United States carries extraordinary costs, and multiple reports suggest that income streams once thought secure have failed to deliver sustained returns, with major media deals producing limited output and expensive legal battles ongoing. Prince Harry's professional options appear increasingly constrained. Speaking engagements, in this context, are viewed less as passion projects and more as survival strategies. Public reaction has reflected this shift in perception. Online commentary has moved beyond mockery to a more sober reassessment of the couple's post-royal ambitions. What was initially framed as a bold reinvention is now being described by some observers as a slow erosion of credibility. Even those who once defended the set acknowledge that the promise of redefining public service has not materialized in the way many expected. Comparisons to historical figures have further sharpened the critique. Royal historians point to the Duke of Windsor as a cautionary parallel. Former royal whose relevance diminished as he relied increasingly on paid appearances and personal notoriety. While circumstances differ, the underlying concern is similar. When status becomes a commodity, its value tends to decline over time. As Prince Harry prepares to address an audience of privacy professionals, the question is no longer whether the irony will be noticed, it already has been. Instead, attention is focused on whether he can articulate a message compelling enough to transcend criticism. Failure to do so may reinforce the perception that his post-royal life has been defined more by contradiction than clarity. For now, the privacy tour narrative continues to gather momentum, driven by a growing sense that Prince Harry's public role has narrowed rather than expanded. Whether this chapter marks a turning point or another step in a downward recalibration remains uncertain, but its implications for his legacy are becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. As Prince Harry's appearance at the Privacy Summit draws closer, the broader implications of his post-royal trajectory are coming into sharper focus. What began as a promise of independence, purpose, and modern leadership is increasingly being reassessed through the lens of outcome rather than intention. For critics and observers alike, the question is no longer about motive, but about impact. The controversy surrounding this engagement underscores a recurring theme in Prince Harry's public life since stepping away from royal duties: a struggle to reconcile principle with practicality. Advocating for privacy while operating within a highly commercialized media ecosystem has created persistent tension. Each new appearance, interview, or paid speech reopens the debate, reinforcing the perception that the boundaries between advocacy and monetization remain unresolved. This moment also highlights the limitations of personal narrative as a long-term strategy. Prince Harry's story, rooted in trauma, loss, and institutional conflict, once resonated powerfully with global audiences. Over time, however, repetition has dulled its effect. Media analysts suggest that audiences are increasingly seeking forward-looking substance rather than retrospective grievance. Without a clear framework for delivering measurable impact, even sympathetic listeners may begin to disengage. The implications extend beyond Prince Harry himself. For the monarchy, his continued visibility serves as a reminder of the risks inherent in brand fragmentation. While Buckingham Palace has remained largely silent, insiders suggest that each high-profile controversy reinforces the wisdom of maintaining institutional distance. In this sense, Harry's journey has become a case study in what happens when royal symbolism is separated from royal structure. Public sentiment reflects this recalibration. Polling trends and online discourse suggest that neutrality is replacing outrage, and indifference may ultimately prove more damaging than criticism. Cultural relevance depends on evolution, and observers question whether Prince Harry has successfully adapted to a world that demands more than inherited status and personal testimony. As the summit approaches, expectations remain tempered. Privacy professionals and corporate stakeholders are likely to listen politely, but skepticism will linger unless Harry delivers insights grounded in expertise rather than experience alone. The challenge lies in offering solutions that extend beyond personal reflection into actionable policy or technological frameworks. In the final analysis, this episode encapsulates the broader dilemma facing Prince Harry's post-royal life. Visibility without clarity risks diminishing influence. Advocacy without consistency invites scrutiny, and independence without direction can lead to reputational drift. Whether this appearance marks a course correction or further confirms existing doubts will depend not on symbolism, but on substance. For now, the debate continues, less emotional, more analytical, and increasingly focused on results. Prince Harry's legacy, once defined by duty and tradition, is still being written. The question is whether future chapters will bring coherence to his narrative, or whether they will further complicate a story already defined by contradiction.